Hello everyone, it is Nahla Jamil Ahmed, and I am very excited to be back. I got a lot of appreciation and for the previous videos that I have been uploading, but I did it during COVID time, so I had a lot of free time in hand. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not really having that much free time now, but I decided to record a few explanatory videos for A230A and E304A since I'm taking it right now. So I will be doing book two of A230A first, and then I'm going to go to book one. Then I'm going to go to E304A, book two, then book one or book two. We're going to figure it out later. So thank you so much for your support. It also came to the notice of my professor, um, and I was really grateful that so many of you were getting a lot of help and understanding the lessons even better by my explanation. So it really means a lot to me, and that is what encouraged me more to come over here again and record more videos of explaining these lessons. So we are going to get started with A through 230A. The first part, that is Romanticism and industrialization. Then in the second video, I'll be explaining, we're going to go to Wordsworth in detail, and then we're going to go to Percy Shelley in detail. So let's get started with Romanticism and industrialization. I'm going to be sharing a document which is a summarized version of Dr. Julie Leo's presentations and other resources that is already available on LMS that you can get access to with the subject. Credit goes to them. I'm just using these resources that I have summarized to explain the lessons even better. So let's get started. So, what is Romanticism? The nature of Romanticism may be approached from the primary importance of the free expression of the feelings of artists, began with the French Revolution in 1789 and ended with the parliamentary reforms of 1832. So, before Romanticism movement starts, artists, writers, poets, their writings were more based on rules. They were writing about society in general. Poets and writers were not getting their own individual recognition. People didn't focus on the poets and the authors. They focused more on the writing and the society and the value it has for the society in general. So, the Romantics, or in the Romantic era, the intention, the main reasons why Romanticism movement started was they wanted these romantic artists or writers or authors. They wanted more freedom in expressing their feelings and expressing themselves rather than just being logical and rational and talking about the rules and talking about the government and perfectionism. They wanted to show that there is imperfection, there are feelings and emotions, and human beings in general. They need to get more recognition than just the rules and all the other notions that the classical period believed in. So it started with the French Revolution in the year 1789, and it ended when there were parliamentary changes. Parliamentary changes, there were changes in the government rules in 1832. Now, Romanticism started in Europe, mainly in Europe, and there were a lot of changes, a lot of things that you could see in United Kingdom, which we will see in coming topics. Now, the Romantic Age was a shift from the ideas of the Classical Age. During the Classical Age, writers valued reason, clarity, balance, and order, which were all things embodied in classical Greek literature. Now, as I said earlier, that the Romantic Age, people more believed in writing about values, about reason, about everything being clear, about balance, order, harmony, everything that's nice, everything that shows that world is an amazing place. There's nothing wrong with us. Everything is perfect, and people love this thing. But in Romantic Age, there was a shift of ideas. They did not want to write about perfections. They did not want to write about reason. They wanted to show the imperfect side of the world. They wanted to show the harm that is there in the world, the issues that people are facing, the diseases. They were focusing more on this side of writing than the classical writing form. It is an attitude and intellectual orientation that characterized many works of literature, painting, music, architecture, criticism, and historiography in Western civilization over a period from the late 18th to mid 19th century. Now, Romanticism was not just seen in literature. It was more than that. Literature is just one part that we are studying now. The movement of Romanticism was also including artists, music writers, architectures, historians, so many other categories. And it was, they were trying from 18th century, from late 18th century to mid 19th century to change these ideas from classical form to a new form. Now, Romanticism can be seen as a rejection of principles of order, calm, harmony, balance, idealization, and rationality. So, as I said earlier, Romanticism, they were rejecting the ideas and principles of perfection. They were saying that everything is not perfect. There is no order in the world. We are not calm. There is no harmony. There is no balance. There is no idealization. There is no rationality. So they were trying to portray the more negative side of the world than the perfect side that everybody was already doing. And they were rejecting the idea that the world has order, the world is calm, the world has harmony, whereas it was nothing like that anymore. It was a reaction against the Enlightenment and against 18th century rationalism and physical materialism in general. Now, what do they mean here by Enlightenment? Well, there was a period started in Greek, if I'm not wrong. Um, they showed that Enlightenment was a stage where people were enlightened with studies, and everything was perfect for them. There was no there it's all positivity, and if you're positive, everything is going to be positive. Just giving you a summary of what do they mean by enlightenment. So romanticism, the romantic literature, or the romantic artists or the writers or the authors, they were against this enlightenment. They were saying that no, it's not like that. There is no, everything is not positive. There's also the negative side of the world that we need to look into. We cannot just ignore it. And against the 18th century rationalism, now rationalism is also um, something that was connected to the Enlightenment period, where people focused on rationality rather on logic and rationality. Rationality is logic, where they were focusing on logic rather than on emotions, on feelings of people. They did not consider feelings and emotions and individual identity as something important. And physical materialism, we are talking about industrialization over here, which we will see all of these later. So, in the Romantic era, the artists, the poets, the writers, they focused on individualism, the inner imaginative life, the self, the nature. They wanted to give more importance to the authors themselves rather than the society, the way they are interpreting, the way they are understanding their writing. Um, and they wanted to embrace freedom and set themselves apart from the order and rationality of classical poetry. Because in classical poetry, they were focusing on rationality and order. They wanted things to be logical. But the Romantic artists, they wanted freedom to express themselves as individuals, as people, to express their imagination, to express their emotions, their feelings, and nature, and not materialism and rationalism and enlightenment, which was all the factors related to classical poetry. Now, the Romantic period saw a rise in creative, artistic, and intellectual pursuits in 18th century Europe. The era placed greater emphasis on emotions and intuition as opposed to the scientific rationalism which had gained prominence during the Age of Enlightenment. So, the Romantic period, since the Romanticism movement started, the Romantic period, there was a lot of other artists and a lot of other authors and writers and poets. They started joining the movement, and they saw a rise in creativity in writing about emotions and feelings, and writing about artists, and writing about everything that was not classical poetry. And they were against um, age of enlightenment and rationalism, so that was declining, and the creativity, the imaginative side of poets were coming up. They saw themselves free spirits expressing their own imaginative truths. So that is what they were focusing on, then that is what they were able to get. Now we are going to compare what the writers focused on in the Age of Reason in the classical poetry, and what the artists, I mean the writers, stressed and they were focused on in the Romantic period. So in the Age of Reason, they were focusing on reason and judgment, but in the Romantic era, they were focusing on imagination and emotion. Um, the second thing is concerned with universal experience. That was in the Age of Reason, while in the Romantic era, they were focusing on particular experience. Just a simple example. Here may be concerned with the universal experience. They will be talking about how they will be talking about enlightenment and people who, however much they're educated, the more enlightened they are. Um, but here, on the other hand, they are expressing particular experiences. Um, Example where William Wordsworth is talking about his love for nature. The value of society as a whole. Here they were writing about things that had value for the whole society and not just a single individual. But in the Romantic era, they were valuing the individual human being. They were valuing the thoughts, the things of this individual person, their emotions, the feelings, and the writings. Now here they valued rules, but in the Romantic era they valued freedom for writers to be able to express themselves and express their emotions, express themselves um, in an individual way. Now we're going to see the characteristics of Romantic era. These are points that are taken from Dr. Julie Leo's presentation. Common man and childhood over urban sophistication. So in Romantic era, they were more focused on common man and childhood over urban sophistication, which is industrialization. Now, Romantics believed in the natural goodness of humans, which is hindered, which is changed, or which is um, caused the difference by urban life of civilization. They believe that the savage is noble, childhood is good, and the emotions inspired by both beliefs causes the heart to soar. So they were focusing more on the common man and the children because they believed that they had good in them. There was a natural goodness in them, and they wanted to express their side of the story other than the urban sophistication. Now, emotions over reason. Romantics believe that knowledge is gained through intuition rather than deduction. This is best summed up by Wordsworth, who stated that all good poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So now, romantics, they wanted to portray to the world that knowledge is not just gained by deduction, that is by the way that the Greek, that the way that people used to believe is enlightened, but the romantics, they believe that knowledge is gained through intuition, through your own personal experiences. And William Wordsworth, he stated that all good poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So, according to him, he says that good poetry is a result of powerful feelings. Then, nature over artificial. Romantics, such as Wordsworth, he was focusing more on nature than the artificial world, the materialism. Romantics stressed that awe of nature in art and language and the experience of sublimity through a connection with nature. Romantics rejected the ideas of industrial revolution. So romantics were more pro nature. They loved nature. They wanted to um, show to the world the importance, the significance of nature, rather than the industrial revolution, which they were against. The reasons we're going to see in the section of industrial revolution. The individual over society. Romantics often elevated the achievements of the misunderstood heroic individual outcast. So, uh, as I said earlier, the romantics, they were trying to portray the ideas of an individual and not the society. Just an example, if the society is against the marriage of, this was during the 15th, 16th, 17th century, as we studied in Othello, whereas the interracial marriage was not, it was, the society was against the interracial marriage, but maybe an individual like Othello is not against it and he wants to have an interracial marriage, but the society is against. So in the classical period, people would write about interracial marriage but show that interracial marriage is is not good, is not accepted in the society. But romantics would have portrayed and would have wrote about this topic in the way that shows that interracial marriage is accepted. Imagination over logic. Romantics legitimize the individual imagination as a critical authority. So romantics, they uh, believed that they can write about imagination. Why shouldn't they write about imagination? Because it is so beautiful. People can travel places in their own mind and their own thoughts, and writing about imagination is beautiful. Now, what were the themes that the Romantic writers were focusing on during the Romantic era? So, discontent with the present situation, that was industrialization. They were focusing on writing about the unhappy, the irrational side of industrialization. Quest for liberation, mental and physical liberation means freedom. So quest means missions for freedom. They wanted to write about freedom. It could be mental freedom where they can be mentally free, or they can write about physical freedom where they can be physically free from the torture of industrialization. Desire to travel to mystical and seemingly impossible realms is imagination. They wanted to write more about imagination. And active protests for change, not protect, protests for change, was also another theme that they wanted to, they were focusing more on. So these were the themes of Romantic era. So five major Romantic era poets. They are William Wordsworth, William Blake, Lord Byron, Percy Shelley, and John Keats. We will be focusing on William Wordsworth, William Blake, and Percy Shelley in our subject. So that was it regarding the Romanticism and the Romantic period. That was it regarding the Romantic period and the Romanticism. In the next video, I will be focusing on industrialization and talking about William Wordsworth, William Blake, and Percy Shelley will be covered in its own separate video. Um, and that is it. Thank you so much, and I hope that you really learned something from this video. Um, See you soon.